Hey, Writerly Besties, and welcome back to the Writing with Anna New podcast, where we talk about all things writing. In today's episode, I am very excited because we're going to be talking all about how to come up with book titles for your novels. And honestly, I adore coming up with names for like literally anything, whether that be my book title, whether that be my characters or like settings and places in my book. I adore coming up with names and just naming things. Honestly, also, this is kind of like not related, but I name like objects that I own, like my computer. I call it hot potato because it's a HP. I like name my car, like so many things I just name and I just love it. But anyways, yes, today we're going to be kind of going through some ideas to help you name your novel, even if it's just kind of like a temporary title. I think it's just still so important to at least kind of get these ideas flowing, and plus it's so exciting to just have, your title name, and it's like, I don't know, it's really cool and it's one of my favorite things to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and get straight into the 4 main tips I want to give you guys in today's episode. So, okay, firstly, I want to say that it actually doesn't matter, which is interesting because I just said how cool it is. But honestly, like, you first need to just like go through your novel. Like, don't really think about the title since it technically isn't that important. Just focus on, what you're writing and just kind of be okay with that. And though you might, want to always have at least a title, I probably like think that that title will definitely change in the future, which is totally fine and okay, but it's still, of course, fun to have a title. But I just want to kind of say first that it doesn't really matter. So don't worry too much about it. The second tip I want to give quickly is to actually write your book first. And though it is tempting, again, to just name your book, or maybe you already have like a title idea, just try to full on like write your whole book, at least the first draft, so you can get the full and like you can encompass the whole story within your title. And yeah, just make sure you actually finish the book so you can actually see exactly what sort of title would suit it in its entirety. Okay, for the next 2 tips, they're kind of a little bit more long-winded, so let's go ahead and dive into them. So, number 3, you try, this is kind of hard to explain, but, or like kind of hard to uh, like be a tip, because I guess you have to try to make your title short, around like 3 words or like 4 words. Again, like when you think about it being on a cover, you don't want it to take up the whole entire thing, but sometimes long titles do work. For example, I'm not too sure if it is going to be the actual title, if I even do publish this book, but I love it so much, and it's I First Met You in a Graveyard, which is like, it was interesting because I actually came up with that idea as a project name. I call it in all my videos, you probably know. Project I First Met You in a Graveyard, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm in love with that title, and it just comes to me like that. But again, like, it is usually the rule of thumb to keep it under 4 words. But yeah, again, it's really up to you and your situation and your book. Also, yeah, just keep that in mind. The next thing, sorry, I just started right then. The next thing, tip 4, is probably the most important tip in regards to actually, helping you develop your title. And also after this, I'm going to actually give you some ways of actually how to come up with the idea of a title and stuff like that. But tip number 4 is to ensure that your title encompasses the whole book. And I kind of have like little sub tips for this overall tip. And that is that, yes, 1, it needs to encompass your whole book as like itself. Number 2, it needs to be catchy and interesting. Number 3, it needs to represent the themes in your book. Number 4, it needs to actually also represent your genre. And number 5, it needs to like also represent your writing style. And I guess like through those things, you can express the way that you write in your title, which is interesting because I feel like maybe I'm reading it too much into it, but I think the title of a book really does say a lot about what the author like wants the story to be, and their writing style as well. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just being too complicated about this, but I guess those things are very good to keep in mind, especially about the genre and your themes. Like, you're not gonna name a horror story something that's like, you know, I don't know, like a romance sort of title where it's like, I don't know, romance titles these days are very like simple. They're like The Hating Game. Like they're very like quirky things when like a horror is gonna be like Blood and Dirt or something. I don't, maybe it's just, I don't know. I hope you know what I mean. But yeah, that's kind of like things you got to keep in mind. Again, just like, yeah, make sure it encompasses your book, your themes, your genre, and also I mentioned about it being interesting. Of course, you're not gonna have to. I feel like Blood and Dirt as a title isn't very interesting, but The Hating Game, I know they're different genres, but like The Hating Game, you're like, oh, what's that about? But yeah, that was a bad example. But anyways, that's kind of, yeah, what I kind of look for, at least like check off when I'm reflecting upon a title. Um, so yeah, I guess if I use the example, the really bad example, Blood and Dirt, it kind of, I guess, encompasses the book, whatever the book is about. Maybe it's about um, blood and dirt. Number two, it needs to be catchy and interesting, which it does not really tick off. Number three, does it represent the themes? I guess it does. Number four, does it represent my genre? Yes, it's kind of a horror. Number five, is it like my writing style? I think it could be. But you see how it didn't really like tick off all of the little tips? Yeah, you got to kind of reflect upon that. Okay, well, now we're going to get into actually how to really write your book, which I know it's kind of taken a while to get to this point, but I hope that kind of helped give me a little bit of like context and like reflection upon like, yeah, what you need your title to really represent, because I honestly think titles are very important and they can like make or break your book. And yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm going to give you some ideas on how you can actually write a title. So number one, you can look for it in a title or like a sort of sentence in your book and you make that a title, I guess. So yeah, kind of like look at your book, maybe there's a really cool quote that you really, really love. You can literally take that out. And then it's so cool because when like the person who's reading your book reads that line, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's what it means." You know, I think that's so powerful. The second thing you can use is a running metaphor in your book. This is really, really cool because you can actually, yeah, use it also similar to what I'm kind of what I talked about before about your character kind of reading the book, then getting the title. So, for example, my Project BB, which is Project Blackbirds, and also just kind of as a little side thing, I also have done the chapter 2 of the audiobook of my actual book. So if you want to definitely check that out on my YouTube channel, I have an audiobook of me speaking and yeah, me kind of talking and reading my book out loud. So definitely check that out. But blackbirds, that's actually a metaphor, and I don't really use it too much as like those two words in the book, but it is a metaphor, sorry. Because yeah, I'm not going to get into it, but it's a metaphor. And that's how it is. Okay, the next thing you can use is a character, of course. You can use a character name. I honestly think that's a bit boring, but if it's like very, very cool. For example, I'm probably just going to give you like all my examples from all my titles. But for example, one of my short novella projects is called The Strange Spell of Asara Curies. So Asara Curies is the main character, or at least one of the main characters, but I kind of added to that by The Strange Spell of Asara Curies. And that is quite a long title, but it's kind of a working title at the moment, so I might say just like The Spell of Asara Curies or Strange Asara Curies, I don't know. But you kind of get what I mean. The next thing is a place you can have as a title. I guess like the Graveyard Project is like I first met in a graveyard, like that's where you first met the characters, if you know what I mean. And also it can be a list. A lot of different fantasy books nowadays, I don't really like it. Sometimes I think it's overdone. I don't even know if I can like remember any because they're also generic. But like, it's like a kingdom, a serpent, fire. That's a really bad one. But like, it's just like these random like words. And I guess it's powerful sometimes and interesting and intriguing, but sometimes it's like that tells you nothing about the book and your writing style. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of like some examples where you can like draw from your book. And also reflect upon like, yeah, what can be potential titles? And again, definitely just list them out. Don't say like, that is it. That's the only one, because it could be, but it could not be. Yeah, just help your ideas build upon each other. You can also maybe get another person's POV of what would be a good title. However, I just want to say, like, as a final remark, that you will know that it's right. Like, you know that that title is the title. I also have no idea in regards to like publishing stuff, because apparently, I don't know, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but if you don't self-publish and you get like an editor and like a publishing company, they choose your titles and your covers and stuff like that. So I don't know about that, but you can have the title in your heart, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I guess that's the end of today's episode. I know this was a bit of a like a long-winded explanation, or like, yeah, sort of like tips to give you. But I love coming up with titles again. It's so fun, and I know you guys probably really like it too. Yeah, so again, it's not like the end of the world if you don't have a title, or you just haven't come to one yet, because you really just got to be patient with your book and your ideas, and I'm sure your title will come through eventually. So I hope these tips maybe helped a little tiny weeny bit. But yeah, and I hope you kind of enjoyed listening to some examples of my titles. So yeah, anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next episode. Bye.